Welcome, everyone, to the first of this year's Dean's Innovative Leaders Series. For those of you who are new to the school, the series features the most dynamic and forward-thinking leaders, individuals who are shaping the present and future marketplace. The speakers for this fall certainly meet those criteria. In addition to today's guest, we look forward to hosting Tom Siebel, CEO of C3 Energy, on October 11th, Ann Fudge, former CEO of Young & Rubicam, on November 13th, and Dr. Severine Schwann, CEO of Roche Group, on November 19th. Today's speaker, Carlos Brito, is the CEO of Anheuser Busch InBev, the leading global brewer. AB InBev is one of the world's top 5 consumer products companies and recognized as first in the beverage industry on Fortune magazine's World Most Admired Companies list. With over 200 different beers in its portfolio, including global brands Budweiser, Corona, my favorite, Stella Artois and Beck's, and significant market share in the US, Brazil, China, and Russia, AB InBev is a truly global company. Carlos Brito is described as bright, aggressive, and bold, but it is his attention to detail and hands-on approach that has been key to his track record of smoothly integrating some 200 beer brands from around the globe to make AB InBev the world's largest beer company. The 2008 combination of InBev and Anheuser-Busch, the St. Louis-based maker of Budweiser, transformed the industry and created the world's largest beer maker, with $40 billion in revenue last year and about $160 billion in market cap. But despite the magnitude of Brito's enterprise, he personally handpicks promising young employees to promote early in their career and greets each new class of global management trainees. Brito believes that great companies are formed by great people. He said, "What distinguishes you from an average company is the kind of people you can attract, retain, develop, train, and promote." Carlos has sought to bring a unified culture to the 150,000 employees in 24 countries who work at AB InBev. In addition to keeping costs down, there is also an emphasis on excellence, speed, and transparency. In many facilities, employees' metrics are posted publicly for all to see. Brito and other top managers try to be accessible and operate in an innovative, open office environment. The beer maker's financial performance has earned Brito high marks from Wall Street, with the stock up more than 150% over the past 4 years. But it is Brito's management style that has earned him a ranking on Fortune's 2013 Executive Dream Team and a recent title of Brewmaster of the Universe. Born in 1960, he is a Brazilian citizen and received a degree in mechanical engineering from the Universidade Federal de Rio de Janeiro and an MBA from Stanford University. He held positions at Shell Oil and Daimler-Benz prior to joining InBev in 1989. At InBev, he had roles in finance, operations, and sales before being appointed Chief Executive Officer in January 2004. He was appointed Zone President North America at InBev in January 2005 and CEO that December. He is also a member of the board of directors of InBev and Grupo Modelo. As a Brazilian native running a Belgian headquartered company out of New York, he is truly a global leader. Please join me in welcoming Carlos Brito.
Thank you, guys. Sorry about that title from that Fortune magazine. It's kind of stupid, but you know, what can I do? So that's why it's good to come here, because then you don't need to read the magazine. You can just hear it from me. So good afternoon. It's great to be here. Thanks for your time. Thanks for coming. What I'll try to do here as a game plan is that I'll talk for 15, 20 minutes max, and then I'll open up for Q&A. Does that sound okay? Yeah, good. Let me tell you a little bit what's key in our company. And by the way, I've been in the company for 24 years. So I've seen the company grow from a one-country type company to a global company like we have today. We're not perfect, far from it. That's why we need to attract people like you to come to our company to help, close the gap and get closer to perfection, because perfection is an ever-moving target. Well, let me tell you a little bit what we think is the secret sauce about our company. And I say this because we had 6 opportunities to test against almost a control group, which were companies that we were acquiring in the same industry. And they were not going bankrupt. They had brands, they had cash, they had warehouses, they have everything. But again, not perfect, but we had, on average, a better performance than those other companies. And we asked ourselves every time we joined and could see what was in the company, why that difference was so, we were intrigued by the difference. And the only things the only things we could put our fingers on, what we call the dream, people, and culture. That's it. Everything else was the same. They had brands, they had cash, they had warehouses, they had trucks, they had people, they had markets, they had customers, but our performance was better, okay? We built a company with this very simple idea, and you say, well, is that it? You came here to talk about this? It's very simple, but it's very hard to live. I always compare it to live on a daily basis. I always compare this with staying fit. I mean, we all know what it takes to be healthy and stay fit. You eat well, you have to watch out about your eating habits, and you have to exercise a little bit, and that should be good enough. But how many of us do it like 365 days a year? We do it for 2 months, and then we start traveling, or we had an exam, or we have too much group work, and then we get off track, and then 3 months later we recover that, and we gain weight, and we lose weight, and we gain weight. So it's tough to live on a daily basis because there are many distractions, and we can talk about the distractions during the Q&A. But we built our company with this idea that the only sustainable competitive advantage that we could have was the people that we could attract. Everything else could be copied. Even the brands. I mean, we have some amazing brands because we have some amazing people that understand consumers, what they want, what they're looking for, and we try to provide products that will kind of fit what they're looking for in that specific occasion. So again, people. If you have a brewery, it's an asset. A lot of people think about consultants and banking and say, well, of course, the main assets these guys have, it's all about people and computers. That's it, right? What else do they have? But when you come to a consumer product company, you say, oh, no, they have brands, they have breweries, they have warehouses, they have trucks, they have soft drinks plants, they have all these assets. So that's what matters, and the brands that consumers buy. And we say, no, what matters again is the people and the culture. So we built a company with this idea that the company is really the people. It's a very simple idea, but a lot of people forget that. So you can only build a great company if you really have great people. And for that, you need the 3 things. First, you need to dream big. You need to have a big idea of what you're trying to achieve. Aim high. Why? Because first, dreaming big or small take the same amount of energy. So why dream small? Right? Let's try to dream big. Dream big is not an adventure. A big dream is something 80% how to get there, and 20% you discover along the way. By copying from others, by learning, by tripping over things you didn't know existed, and you bridge that 20% gap. Adventure is the opposite. You propose something that's so crazy, that's so out there. 20% how to get there, and you believe that 80% you'll learn along the way. You're the only one who believes that. Nobody else believes that, and people are going to be disconnected from that big dream. So dream is a little bit of an art form, an educated guess of what we can accomplish as an organization. It is stretched, and that's why it's called a dream. Otherwise, it would be called something else. So you need a dream, and that's the most important thing in the company, because that focuses people, gets people passionate about something, committed, gets their energy, that's their life. They're excited about it. They know why we're doing things, because we're trying to achieve this. And from there, everything else comes. For example, the second leg, people. If you're trying to build a great company, because life's too short to be in a boring company, you're just trying to survive, too short, too boring. I mean, it's good to be part of something that you're trying, at least, to be a best in class or build something best in class that you can be part of and proud of when you look back and say, I was part of that. My name is there. Okay? That is something that talented people like. So we need to attract great people, but because of that, we invest a lot of time doing what we're doing here. We invest a lot of time with different programs. People is number 1 on my agenda. Okay? I get very upset when I hear people in our company say sometimes that last round of interview for somebody who's going to be working on their team, they have no time to go, they send somebody else. I said, wait a minute, what kind of agenda do you have and priorities? If this is the most important thing in our company, how come you don't have time to go? Can you imagine a coach from the Red Sox sending an assistant coach to talk to the team members at the locker room in between, games or halves or quarters, or sending an assistant coach to hire a different player. You say, no, of course not. That doesn't exist. But in the company, that happens all the time. And we think it's okay. Oh, no, too busy, And the thing we learn is that talented people attract more of the same. They like to work together. They challenge each other. They learn from each other. They help each other. They, aim high. They're looking up. And yes, that gives you butterflies in the stomach because you're always looking at something, and therefore there's a gap. I'm looking here, I'm here, so there's a gap I need to cover. Mediocre people love to look down because they feel good, right? Look at this guy down there. I'm much better than this guy. I feel good about it, right? And if you're mediocre, you attract more mediocre people. How great is that? Right? Everybody think everything's great. The targets are very easy. January 1st, how to get to 120% of that target, so you know everything plus some more. A lot of cushion, no stretch targets. Everybody's happy. Everybody's having fun the whole time. No pressure. That's a mediocre environment that produces what? An average company. That's that company where people work because, I need to work. But my passion doesn't lie here. I have a side thing that I'm really passionate about, horses or jogging. But the company says, yeah, I need to work. No, we hate that. So people is a key thing. And we try to create an environment where those amazing people come and stay. We don't lose good people. Not everybody likes to work for a company like ours. It's just like jogging and running a marathon. A lot of us jog. I jog half an hour a day. That's it. Okay? But there are guys that run 42 kilometers. I mean, these guys have resilience. They have a big dream. They train. They're tough. They don't give up. That's the kind of guy we're looking. So it's a minority. Because stretch targets about building the best beer company in the better world. That's our dream. It's not building just an average company that will survive and will pay the salaries. And at 6 o'clock you'll go home. And you have a boring life. And that's the only life you have. So not worth it. Talented people don't like that. All right, so we learned that. And we learned that what talented people like, and they would stay because of that, they like three things. They like first meritocracy, in that they are judged and given opportunity to grow by what they can achieve, by the culture they spread in the company, our culture ambassadors, by the teams they form, by the delivery of targets on a consistent basis, and the fact that they are always willing to chew a bigger bone. More responsibility, more accountability. I'm not afraid of it. I want to give me more. If the guy has all that, he'll leapfrog what another company would say, oh no, first you do this, then 5 years later you do this, da, 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 da. In our company, we've been doing this for 24 years. So it's not a theory, it's not a concept, it's not a pilot. You can go around the company and see, I'm the oldest guy in the company. My idea of young keeps changing, For me now, young is 53 years old. That's young. And next year it's going to be 54 and so on and so forth. So I'm young. But I'm the least young of all my colleagues, Everybody's in their 40s, 30s, in very senior positions in the company. But we hired from the school benches, from the undergrad, from the MBA, because again, we're looking for talented people. And once they come and love how we do things, not what we do, but how we do things, they don't leave. Because we create an environment where you have meritocracy. Second thing that talented people like, informality. We work in open space environments. I don't have an office, I don't have a driver, I don't have a company car. I travel commercial, I travel the same class as everybody else in the company, the 150,000 people we have. I stay in the same hotels. We don't like this as status symbols. I work on a big table with my direct reports around me. I look here, it's the marketing people. I look here, it's the finance people. I look in front of me, it's the IR people, and so on and so forth. All on the same floor. Everybody's exposed, including myself. Okay, so if I say, guys, you need to work hard, and 3 o'clock I'm going home, people say, yeah, we need to work hard. He's not working hard, right? So, it's a thing. It's very hard on leadership because you have to do what you say. But that's us. So people is the second leg. The third leg is about ownership. We like people that think that this is my company, because it is. This is our company. And we foster an environment that you become partner of the company. So your assets, everything is in the company. But the way we do it is to foster long-term commitments. So we do it different than most other companies that will give a long-term incentive 3 years. No, our long-term incentive is 5 years, 10 years. Because if you're going to be an owner, what's the problem? We like owners, by the way. We don't like executives or professionals. Executives come here for 2 years to have the name in the resume. They job hop for the next company. We hate that. We try to create an environment that when these people look at our company and how we work, they say, oh, no, my God, I would hate to work for a company like that. We say, great, go somewhere else. Because we can't please everybody, we try to please the very talented. And our whole system is there to please, develop, and make talented people stay. Because they say, finally, I find a place that I can be myself, and what matters is what I can deliver. Not a passport, a family connection, whatever else, or seniority. You know, I remember I had a couple from a very, successful multinational American company that I met in Brussels when I was living there. And both husband and wife used to work for the same company. And we were having dinner, my wife and I, and the two of them, so the four of us. And he was saying, oh yeah, well, my wife's ahead of me professionally in this company, XYZ, because she got there 5 years before I did. And unless something very strange happens, she'll always be ahead of me. And I looked and I said, oh, how interesting. And then inside of me, I said, oh my God, oh, how sad, how terrible. So if I happen to be there 5 years before, after you arrived, I'll always be, even if I have more potential, if I deliver more, if I'm a culture ambassador, if I'm all these things, I'm still going to be always behind you. No, talented people hate that. They want to be measured by what they can deliver, by what they do, what they are, not how long they've been there, or passports, or family, or connections, or politics. So that's the people side. On the culture side, as I was beginning to say, ownership is a very important concept for us. We want people to feel that's my company. Because when you feel owner, you make better decisions. Think about the rental car example. It doesn't happen with me. But I've heard that some people, when they rent cars, I've heard there's bad people, when they rent cars, they try and experiment new driving ways. New driving experiments in a rental car, which they would never do in their own car. Why? I think because they're not going to live with the consequences of their experiments. So they do something. Some people would like to take all four wheels off, going through a speed bump, and take the wheels off and see what happens when it comes back, when it lands. Is it a crash landing? Is it a soft landing? If it happens to be a crash landing, and then you give up the car to a company. I'm not going to even say the name of the company because I already got a tough time from some of the rental companies. But somebody else will live with the consequences. Ownership is that thing that you make decisions and you live with the consequence. And therefore, you try to make better decisions because you're going to live with the consequences of those decisions. We like owners. We hate professionals, executives. We like owners. So we build an environment where people feel, this is my company. I always give the example of the bakery. And I'll just close with this. Think of the guy who has a bakery. Third generation in the family. The guy's now it's under my watch. All of a sudden, there is a Walmart or Whole Foods that opens across the street and starts selling bread for 1/10 of the price you sell bread. You know it's not the same quality, not the same care, but most consumers would say it's the same thing, just 90% cheaper, 10% of the price. And you start seeing your consumer base crossing the street and going to Whole Foods. You have two options. If you're an employee, you see, oh my God, you know what? I think I'm going to cross the street with them and go get a job at Whole Foods. That's an employee. If you're an owner, you say, no, wait a minute. This thing has been in my family for 3 generations. Failure is not an option. It's not going to be under my watch that this thing is going to disappear. No. So I'll do some quick, research of my consumers, see why they're crossing the streets, and maybe they'll tell me things like, well, at Whole Foods I can buy not only bread, but I can buy 10 or 15 things that I normally buy in my basket when I go shop. And they have fresh this and fresh that and this and that. Then maybe I have to go back and say, maybe I have to become more of a convenience store as opposed to just a bakery. But that will require investment, and I'll have to sacrifice, I'll have to lower my salary, I won't take a vacation this year, because we need to work and retool this thing and reposition this as a convenience shop, because on the other hand, I know that the parking lot's a mess at Whole Foods. I know that the line is always a 10-minute wait, and I know that they have to shop the whole store to find the 10 things they really need on a daily basis. I can bridge all those problems here. Parking lot's easy. I know them by their names. At Whole Foods, the churn is very high. Everything is easy here, in and out in 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So that's my selling pitch for these guys. So they stay here. That's the owner. Look at the difference. The employee just go. The owner stays and said, no, good and bad times, I'll make this thing work. So we value this a lot, and along with some other things. I mean, no shortcuts. That's another big thing in our culture. I remember once I taped an interview for a global conference with Jim Collins, the guy who wrote Good to Great and other books. He's very close to our company. And I went and asked him, Jim, I mean, if your book is all based on research, so not your opinion, I mean, it's based on things that are real, facts, figures, and you came with a recipe book of what great companies do compared to average companies, why is that more companies just don't read the recipe book, like when you're in the kitchen, and come up with the best cake, a great company, you know? And he said, Brito, you know what the problem is? In my research, all companies start like this. They start with good intentions, but they don't have the patience to build a great company. And all of a sudden, they start taking shortcuts. So instead of doing what I'm doing here and trying to recruit people from the very beginning and form that talent, they go take somebody who's been working at company X for 10 years. And then they need a marketing guy. They know for company Y, a guy who has a 15-year tenure, and bring it here. And what you form is not a group. What you form is a bunch. And 2 years later, all these guys are going to be gone because they come with different values. So as they make decisions, as they live together, as they try to hire people, they're using different metrics, different values to do all these things. And these things just get worse and worse. So shortcut is what goes against, one of the things that goes against building a great company. So I say it's the best kept secret because, you know, sometimes people call me and say, you know, Brito, tell me about the managerial style. And I said, guys, it's all about this. You have a big dream, you aim higher, okay? You get the best people, but then you need to have an environment that they come and stay, and you foster an environment that the ownership is being reinforced along the way all the time. And people stay because they say, finally, I'm in a company where I can fulfill things that I have inside of me that in other companies I would die without fulfilling that. And here I have the opportunity to do this and fulfill and try and get to know myself better and be a better person and try to help build the best beer company in the better world. So let me stop here and take questions. Yes?
Thanks so much for coming today.
You're welcome.
Born and raised St. Louis, and Anheuser Busch is a really important company to me growing up. So I'm curious, from your perspective, in building the ideal culture, how do you manage change of a culture from like Anheuser Busch, which is very traditional company, to what you want it to be?
Very good question. Thank you. It's interesting because, again, with Grupo Modelo, now Corona, that has been our number 6 in the last 15 years. Big ones, we had smaller ones. And it's always the same thing. I mean, we announced the Corona deal on June 30th last year. On the next day, I think it was July 1st or July 2nd, we spoke to our investors explaining the deal. And the next day, I was in Mexico. And I stayed there for a whole week, and then every other week I was going to go there, interviewing the top people, and also talking to as many people, as many groups as I could. And all I spoke about was dream, people, culture, what we call the 10 principles. 1 for dream, 2 for people, 7 for culture. That's it. And then I would take Q&A. And that's it. I mean, I wouldn't talk about the business, the synergy opportunity. No. What we stand for and how we do things, not what we're going to be doing. And then the Q&A, I could answer 99.9% of them, always bridging back to one of the principles. You know, so questions from, are we going to have dismissals here? Some people lose their jobs? Are you going to, change our pension system? This and that. I could always bridge back and say, well, if we want to be the best beer company in a better world, consumers are not going to be paying for our inefficiencies, so we need to be competitive. So yes, we're going to be looking at all those things. And yes, if we are competitive, or if we are with the market, great. If we're not, we'll have to change. So, first thing. Second thing, by interviewing people, you need to have a first call on who's going to be able to adopt the culture and the ones that are not going to be able to do it. Because what you see when you have a new company joining to avoid dilution of the culture, you have to make sure that the leadership is totally aligned with the culture. And if they're not, you have to change the ones that are not. Because in every population, you have 20% that lead, 70% that follow. That's why you have leaders, because you have followers. And then you have 10% of the people that are always unhappy with anything. They were unhappy with the company before, the company after. They're unhappy about everything. This 10% you have to identify and take them out of the company because they don't add anything. Quite the opposite, they subtract. But if you're able to align the 20% on top, you're going to be able to get, in our experience, the 70% to follow because most of the people are going to be staying at the 20%, not all. And those people have credibility with the other 70. They've been there for a long time. They've been through good and bad times together, so they build that bond. And they say, kind of, trust me, we're going to a better place. Together we can do more. This makes sense, okay? That's the second thing. And the third thing is you have to live it. And that's what I was saying at the beginning, like staying fit. We all know what to do, but how many of us do it every day in and day out? That's the same thing. Because there's so many distractions. For example, you say the company is about meritocracy. I just said it, because talented people love that. But then you are the head of a department, and there is a vacancy. And you need to make a decision. You have 5 people, whatever number, and you need to make a decision who's going to be the one to be promoted. And you have John and Mary. John has been in the company for 20 years, a great guy and all that, but, potential-wise is already capped a little bit, doesn't have a lot of mileage to go. Mary has been in the company for 3 years, great talent, young, great talent, has tons to do, lots of potential, has already demonstrated a whole lot in 3 years. And you look at it and say, you know what? Meritocracy-wise, the right thing is to promote Mary. But of course, if you do that, a lot of people will question you and say, Mary's so young, she can't wait. Those are the distractions. She can't wait. And then maybe you could be moved and say, oh my God, yes. John has a mortgage. He has 4 kids. All the things that you shouldn't know, but sometimes people make sure you know to influence your decisions. So you need to protect yourself a little bit because at the end, you're trying to live the values of the company. You're not going to try to solve everybody's problem, right? You can't be everything to everybody. So you're trying to please the Marys of this world, not the Johns. You want a company that the Mary says, this is my company. And then you promote Mary. You send a huge message to the organization that what we say, we do. Okay? If you promote John, and the second time you promote the next John, and the third time, the Marys will say, forget it. I mean, these guys say one thing and they live something totally different. Again, very easy to say. How many times we find ourselves, and to avoid peer pressure and peer questioning, you just promote John because then, okay, Mary's going to be unhappy, but she's one. And everybody else will say, oh, yeah, well, good thing to do. I mean, the guy's mortgage and this and that. I don't care. I mean, not that I'm not human. I'm just saying that's not what's at stake here. What's at stake here is the fabric of the company that takes like reputation, 20, 30, 50 years to build, and you lose it in one bad decision, or 2 bad decisions, and you lose credibility. So many distractions that you need to watch out. The other thing is blockers, for example. In managing people, you have to be very careful of blockers. People that have a great past, and they have been compensated for that, they have had a great career in the company, but at some point they reach the point that you don't see the next step. And if you allow the guy to stay there for 10 years, you're blocking the whole, And the mayors of the world are looking up and say, man, if this guy's going to stay there for another 10 years, I'm out of here. Because a blocker. And sometimes when you're going to remove a blocker, in the best way possible, you give feedback, you try to help the guy. After 2 years of doing that doesn't work, you face reality because it's his life, her life. You cannot hide that. You have to share with the person and say, you know what, you're a smart guy. There are many companies out there here, for whatever reason, it's not working anymore. So let's face the brutal facts. We'll do the best we can, and you move on. Because again, life's too short. And then you free up the ways for other people to continue to grow. So those are the distractions that are easily getting you off track. You don't watch out. Another question. Yes.
Hi, Henry Fu at the Master's in Management Studies program. So I have a question for you that you can take any way you want. All right. So when you think about your company culture, you're talking about really the culture of a small company, right? So meritocracy, formality. But within the broader culture, you guys are like the 800-pound gorilla in the market. So how do you reconcile these two?
That's a great question because let me step back. We started in one country. And then because of people, we decided to expand, not because of size. Because we started developing such a great bench. And as you started developing, you said, well, there's not at the top place for everybody. So we're going to lose these people to the marketplace. But my God, we invested 10 years in these guys. Now we're going to lose it, just give it like that to other companies? And then we started going to country A, to country B, because we said, as we go to these other countries, not only are we going to learn a lot for the business, but we're going to have ways to promote and generate opportunities for these people, young talents, to go there, experience something new, be the head of the country, be the head of marketing, this and that, and then come back. And then you start building a career. But as we grew larger and larger, the challenge was there. I mean, how can you start? Because you're right, you're very right. We work like a small startup. And we always say we're a big startup because we continue to work as a startup. I mean, if you look at our incentive system, it has nothing to do with a traditional company. It's high reward, high risk, just like a startup. Risk and reward come together. Promotions, nothing like established company. We don't have career paths. We have people chess. We meet twice a year and we do people chess. We say, okay, what's the best thing to do with Jim or with Ann? You know, not this. I mean, this guy can leapfrog this position, go straight to the next position. It's risk, because if it doesn't work, you can't come back. But it's great. Talented people love that. They love to be exposed. They love to have a bigger bone. So the way we keep it small is that first, again, we work in open space environments, just like any startup would. Any office you go, any sales office, supply, headquarters, anything, all open. So that keeps the information flowing. You know the people because they're not behind doors, and everything is easy. I remember in Belgium when we moved to the US, the management office, we had some meetings with some of the people that were going to stay there, so they don't feel like they were being abandoned, you know. So we had meetings and stuff. I went to the first meeting, the second meeting, then the third meeting I was traveling, I couldn't come. The fourth meeting I was traveling, I couldn't come. And then there was one assistant from the finance department that came to my desk because, again, there's no doors, there's no assistant, there's nothing. She came to my desk and said, Brito, let me tell you this. The fact that you didn't go to the last 2 meetings is sending a message, a clear message that you really don't care about the people that are staying here. I said, no, you're totally wrong. Remember, I went to the first and second. Unfortunately, I was traveling for the next 2. But I will make a commitment, I'll go next one, 5th meeting. And then I went there. She was not there. And then I went to her desk. And I say, hey, Mary, I was there. I didn't see you. Oh, yeah, I had this problem. I said, no problem. Okay, I'm just saying I was there, okay? So, but I was able to go to her desk, you know, because I knew exactly where she was at in the office, and she was able to come to my desk. That's a small company type environment. The other thing is we have lists, we travel a lot. I spend most of my time traveling. And when I travel, I have 2 things in mind. I want to see our people and the marketplace. We do a lot of market visits to see what's going on in the real world. Our competition, our execution, our products, talk to consumers, the whole thing. Tomorrow, by the way, I'll be in the market. It's a Global Beer Responsible Day. So everybody around the world from our system will go to the market to talk to consumers, to help consumers shop, to spread the message on designated driver, responsible drinking, this whole thing. So tomorrow. And the other thing we do, so when we travel, we meet the talented people. We do Q&A. We do town halls, where I always start talking, 5-10 minutes on Drink People Culture, just to remember people what we stand for, and then I open up for questions. So that's the way you try to, but you're right, it will never be as one country where you know everybody by name. But we have developed a couple of ways of doing business that will resemble a small company, because at the end we still operate like a small startup or a big startup. Another question.
Maybe can you stay for a moment? Your
Yeah.
personal work-life balance.
Yeah, personal work-life balance. I don't like that word, personal work-life balance, because I think today is more like personal life navigation, because that's how it feels. You're always navigating. I have 4 kids, been married to the same wife for more than 20 years, so and I work hard. So I think I've been able to balance. On the other hand, what we tell our people is this: we don't have bars in the windows in our offices. I mean, we have some guys here. We don't have bars in the windows, and we only work with grown-ups. So we don't work with kids. So grown-ups, they must have the judgment on where to draw the line. And we don't care if people are going to be working from home sometimes, or this or that. We don't care. We care about the results. Okay, so I trust that our guys know how to balance that, because people stay with us for a long period of time. That's one thing that really is different about our company. We invest a lot of time in distilling, filtering, because we want to get the right individual to stay in the company for 20, 30 years. And yes, sometimes the pendulum goes too much here, You know, family complains, you come a little bit here, and then you go another. That's why I say it's navigation. There's never a balance in the sense that, oh yeah, I got it, it's going to work for the next 10 years exactly like this. No, because situations change. At points, you're really being demanded because you're in the M&A transaction. You're about to close a deal, or you have to integrate the company. Therefore, at that time, you have to travel a lot. Then you try to compensate for it. So it's just like being at school. I mean, time management. I mean, it's a forever thing. You can't do everything you want, so you have to prioritize and have to balance. But it's all about being passionate about what you do. One of the things that I think is funny is I'm a Brazilian, so English is, as you can tell, is not my first language. I'm sure everybody knows that. And one of the things that I thought was different when I came here is that a lot of people in the U.S. like to talk about fun. You know, fun is a word that people use a lot. And I'm sure I still don't understand exactly the true meaning of fun, because people say, no, I mean, you have to choose a job that's fun, you know. And I always say, guys, let me tell you this. Fun for me is being at the beach with my kids. That's fun. I cannot promise fun 100% of the times you're going to be with us. I can promise passion, progress, learning, you know, intensity, you know, progress, opportunities to grow. And yes, when the results are good, yes, we're going to have fun. But first we need to produce the results. I cannot promise a fun environment, because we all work better under pressure, all of us. Isn't that true? When you have an exam, think of an exam with no deadline, no dates. Hey guys, microeconomics, we're going to have an exam one of these days. What are you guys going to do? Well, one of these days, we'll have fun, right? And then when the guy says, well, by the way, the exam is next week, then you say, then I'm going to study, right? So, I mean, we'll use our time better, and we're all more efficient when we have deadlines. Well, there's that famous sentence that says, if you have a job to be done, give to a busy person. Give to a busy person, and that person will get it done. Give to somebody who has lots of slack, and that will never get done. So, I forgot the question. But the fun, yeah. So I always say, guys, I cannot promise fun here 100% of the time. I mean, this is about work. One of the things about leadership that is very true is that as a leader, you have to know what kind of pressure to put in the system. Because you know that all of us, under the right amount of pressure, are more productive and achieve better things than if you have no pressure. If you have too much pressure, you panic. That's bad. That's bad. If you have too little pressure, you're thinking about your vacation, you're thinking about when you get home, you're totally unfocused. Go to an exam being totally relaxed. And now go to an exam where you are rightly nervous, at the right measure, not panic, okay? Of course, you focus much more when you are under pressure. So the thing in the company is that what's the right amount of pressure in terms of targets, in terms of tracking and monitoring? What's the pressure you put so people really, you know, give their full potential? There was another question there.
I think that's a question, and I have a question. How do you handle different opinions and opposition from the board, from shareholders, and also from people that deliver the results consistently?
That's great. We'd love to have people disagree. I mean, that's how you build a great company. I mean, if everybody thinks the same, and they happen to be right, then maybe you build a great company. But if they happen to be wrong, then there's nobody there to say, hey guys, I think we're going the wrong way. So we try to instill an environment where, as I always say, as long as it's respectful and constructive, you can say whatever you want. Okay? Constructive, because if it's destructive, it doesn't add much to the discussion. And respectful, because, I mean, we're going to be working for 20 years together. You don't want to be disrespectful. So as long as you have those two things, we can have discussions. I mean, when I do my performance evaluation that we do twice a year, I do with the people that report to me, and the whole company does it. It's a 90-minute, 1.5 hour exercise, just the two of us, you know, and it's evaluation this way and evaluation this way. Until today, thank God, I hear criticisms from my direct reports. You know, Brito, you're not dedicating too much time for this subject. I think you're too much here, you're not here. You're losing the balance between this and this subject. Our meetings are not very well organized. I mean, I hear these things. Thank God, because I always say when people said, what was important for your career progression? And I say a couple things. First thing is that I always had bosses that were interested in my success. And because of that, and according to our company culture, were willing to give me tough, constructive, respectful feedback always. And I had very tough feedbacks, 24 years in the company, very tough feedbacks. And that helped me, because if you're smart and it's constructive, you take that in, and you try to work on that and get better. The second thing, I've been exposed to critical experiences. That's very important for you to grow. Because if you, in other words, the way to grow people that we think is to take them out of their comfort zone. Because if you are always in your comfort zone, like when you came to MIT, was that your comfort zone? No, right? I mean, that Finance 101 and that accounting, right? Accounting 101, that's totally out of your comfort zone. But you learned a lot. So the way to develop people is from time to time, take them out of their comfort zone. Because that's when the learning curve is that steep, it's this steep. And that's when you learn a lot. Because you say, oh my God, I was in sales, now I'm in marketing. Then I have to learn all those different concepts and different ways of doing things. But I love it, so I'm going to learn it. And then all of a sudden you bang. And you become a more well-rounded person. You know the business better. That's how we develop people in our company. We have some specialists, but we have a lot of people like you that we want to develop in a zigzag so they know the business, not only one part of the business. So they can manage the business one day. Another question. Yes?
So I would like to hear more about your innovation strategy process, product development. You mentioned that there are lots of aspects you work as a startup. So product development has the same startup environment as well, with a lot of creativeness.
Yeah. Yeah, product development was one of those things that even if you ask the Apples of the world, they'll say that yes, there's a lot of creativity, but there's a lot of discipline to it. Because you have to be disciplined, otherwise you just go this broad and you never converge again. So it's one of those things that you need to be broad, you need to go broad at first, but then at some point you need to have the discipline to try to come back again and start eliminating some things, piloting some other things, so you can progress through the different gates or stage gates of the process. So for example, I'll tell you one interesting thing. I'm very connected to Stanford, continue to be connected to business school. And Palo Alto is a place where there's lots of people, like I heard here also in this school, that are starting their own companies and doing these things. And 3.5 years ago, we opened up there what we call our beer garage. Okay, so in Palo Alto, in the middle of all these companies that are popping up all the time in all different blocks, we have a small office at the street level with 2 guys. Now we have like 8 people that are there just to be in touch with the companies that will potentially change the world. Because they have ideas, we have brands and consumers. So we need their ideas, they need our brands and consumers to test their ideas. So it's a perfect match. Because even if you talk to a VC over there, like a Kleiner, they invest in companies that they want to know how big this company can be, how big this market can be. In order to do that, to go to the second or third round of financing, they need to come to a company like us, that again has brands and consumers, to test that idea and see how big the acceptance is and who can hold with consumers and all that. So, but it's all based on consumer insight. The better consumer insights you have, the more or the better you're going to tailor your product portfolio and then pilot on the whole thing. But if you don't have enough consumer insights, then your innovations will be just innovations, but will not be catering to any specific need from consumers, and will fail. Lots of innovations fail, most of them. So insights, connection to this new world of technology, because that's the way to connect with consumers, much more targeted. So a lot of this is in the mix of innovation. Question here.
Last question.
My name is Maxine, and actually, how do you, along the consumer insights, how do you balance the understanding what they want, you're going to feedback from them versus, because sometimes people don't know what they want.
Sure.
5 or 20 years down the line, they don't know what they want.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, consumers are not marketeers, so they're not going to tell you in a full sentence, the next big product is this and this, and you should price at this price, and you should distribute and position the product like this. I mean, it doesn't exist. They'll tell you things, and depending on how good the moderator of the panel is, you'll be able to connect the dots a bit more and try to come up with an idea of what they were saying. But one thing's true. When you get consumers together, they know everything about your product. Everything. You change a word in the label, maybe one won't know, second, third, the fourth guy will say, well, wait a minute, you took that word, lager, or light, from the label. What does that mean? You know? So they know everything about your product. Less commercial, less innovation, what worked, what didn't work, they know everything. So one thing we value a lot is also not only do consumer research, but more and more what we call consumer empathy. And that is to go out with consumers and see what they do with their friends. And a lot of times you learn things that a focus group would not tell you, because you see them in action. You see them with their real money, making choices of what to buy, and the group, how it accepts those products and what they think and what they say. So that's a big part of the innovation process, is to have the consumer empathy, not only just a consumer-focused, traditional focus group. Okay? But all I wanted to say to finish up is this. We built our company based on dream, people, culture. We built the company knowing that we couldn't please everybody. So we said, let's please the very talented, and let's displease the average and the mediocre. Because if they say, this is not my company, great. So one thing I always like in conversations like this is to be very firm on what we stand for, so the right kind of people say, I like that. And the other people, I'm not saying they're wrong, say, I don't like that. You know? But the ones that like, we don't lose good people. And when we do, it's a crisis. I remember in 1999, in the dot-com, maybe some of you were not born, but in the dot-com, in the dot-com era, we lost two guys. One used to report to me, I was head of sales, and the other one used to report to the head of marketing. And these two guys left because they thought they had an idea.com, and that idea.com would make them millionaires in 2 weeks. A lot of people thought about that in those days. And they left the company. We tried everything, they left. And it was a crisis, because it was one of the first times that we lost two guys that we call partners that left. Guys that were doing really well, had a bright future in the company, had a lot of wealth creation for them already in place, and they left, and left the whole thing behind. And I had to justify to my peer group for 1.5 hours, how come I lost that guy? So we went back 2 years in terms of the 4 last performance evaluations, what was written, because we write down what was written there in terms of, what's going well, what the gaps are, what the future could look like, what the guy wants in terms of, where he or she would see himself or herself. And we checked all that, salary, wealth creation, because we have a curve of wealth creation for everybody. And if you're below that curve, we try to interfere, because we think it's only fair if you're generating value for the company, that you get part of that value. If there's no value, nothing to be distributed. But if there's value, we are not shy in distributing value. So that's another good thing about our company. And then it was interesting because, and then we learned a couple things. Oh, maybe given the times we have, .com, maybe we should stress more this, and we learned a couple things. And we didn't lose anybody else after that. But then it was funny, because 2 months later, one of these guys tried to come back because it didn't work. So the guy that worked for me, he's a bright guy, called me back and said, hey, Brito, I'd like to come back, I love the company and stuff. And I said, sorry, we can't take you back. Because if we do, what's the signal I'll be sending to everybody else that stayed and bet that this was the right place to stay? It's just like you have a girlfriend, and the girlfriend comes to you and say, Brito, I'll take a sabbatical of our relationship. I'll go around for 1 year in the market. If I don't find anybody better than you, I'll come back to you. How do you feel about that? Now, do you love me, or is it lack of option? So it's the same thing. So you went to the market, you looked around, didn't like what you see, now you're coming back to us? I don't want to be a safe harbor. We're not safe harbor. We're building our company. We think this is the best place to work. If you don't agree, no problem. So, thank you very much.